Welcome to... Sorry, I got a little excited for this video, so I couldn't help but get into character. Welcome to another episode of Flix Joystix. I'm your host, Guy, and today I'm talking about one of my favorite all-time summer movies, Bat-Man, from 1989, directed by Tim Burton. I was watching Burton's Batman just the other night, and it really brought back a lot of nostalgic memories for me. Those lazy summer days sitting at my local movie theater in my hometown. And man, if you were there for 1989, Bat-Mania was absolutely a thing. Comic books were the least that you could get back then. You could get everything from trading cards to the NES Classic game. There was also a much better Genesis game that came out that had a closer adherence to the plot. People were shaving bat logos into the back of their heads. You had to get involved with Batman in some way. You didn't really have a choice back then. And it was such an iconic movie. They were releasing unfinished trailers. People were sending in petitions because they didn't want to see Michael Keaton as Batman. This was even before the internet. And if you weren't getting bat churros or bat sneakers or bat insert item here, it was absolutely crazy how much Batman ingrained itself into the public consciousness that year. In the late 1980s, comics were really changing. You had DC's The Watchmen, The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Year One. DC Comics was taking a different approach to comics at the time. They were making them darker and more mature with deeper storylines. And all of this brought in new readers to comic shops all over the country. If you've never read any of those, I absolutely recommend them. But going back and watching the 1989 Batman nearly 30 years later, oh, that's painful. It was so different than the Adam West Burt Ward Batman of the 1960s. This wasn't campy, this was gothic and moody, and you could tell right from the start that there was something different about this film. Danny Elfman's iconic score was dark and foreboding and conveyed this sense of action and adventure, and it's still one of the best musical interpretations of Batman today. And I'll fight you for it. Tim Burton has been known for making creative reimaginings of long-standing properties, and Batman was one of his first. There were a lot of changes, most notably in Batman's origin and how fine of a line he walked between his morality, whereas in comic books he was normally a little bit more clear-cut. While people initially grumbled at the casting of Michael Keaton for Bruce Wayne and Batman, he eventually turned people around on the concept and people grew to like him. However, the real star of the show was Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Everyone has their favorite interpretation of the Clown Prince of Crime, but Nicholson's portrayal really brought the classic version of the Joker at home. He was simultaneously entertaining and a sadistic monster. He was chaotic, unpredictable, and enjoyed killing simply for the sake of doing so. There were a number of things that I really loved about Nicholson's Joker. My personal favorite was every time he pulled one of his major crazier capers, he was always accompanied by Prince music. I remember people criticized Prince's musical inclusion in the film, but it fit the Joker's character so well. And when he was dancing to Prince music, he wasn't killing anybody. Maybe Batman should have used his Bat CD player to keep the Joker from going on killing sprees. He'd be a lot happier. There were other nuances to the Joker that I really appreciated on this last viewing. Another great scene is when Bruce Wayne is in Vicky Vale's apartment and he's telling the story of a bad kid that had all of his wiring messed up. And you can just tell that the Joker is genuinely interested in the story about this bad kid who had all these problems and issues. It just made the scene funnier. I loved the practical special effects in this film. They used a combination of models, matte paintings, hand-drawn animation. Gotham City was constantly on the verge of decay. If there ever was a brighter time in Gotham's history, this absolutely was not it, and that's why Batman was so important to the story. There were a couple things that I actually learned in this last viewing of Batman. The Axis chemical set that was used as one of the Joker's many hideouts was actually used in 1986's Aliens as an LV-426, Hadley's Hope Colony. Batman also introduced the concept of Batman's grappling gun that was later used in all future media. There were a couple plot issues that really started raising questions with me this last viewing, however. The character of Vicky Vale. She comes in to help out Alexander Knox. They're going to collaborate where he writes the story, she takes the pictures. Everything sounds great. They're going to get to the bottom of this Batman mystery that everyone's been concerned about. However, when she meets Bruce Wayne, she spends the rest of the movie stalking Bruce Wayne, trying to find out what his deal is and why he ditched her that one night. The only reason she actually got interested in Batman again is that she found out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. That's the only point in this entire movie where she had any further renewed interest in the character. I found it really funny. Knox is trying to break this story and she's just done. She just writes the whole thing off, and she still leaves him in the lurch during the final minutes of the story. There is, of course, the infamous Alfred leading Vicky into the Batcave scene. A lot of people have criticized this, and I totally get it. However, I did notice that she changed outfits during this scene, so maybe she had a little bit of time to process this whole dual identity thing. But again, where's her journalistic curiosity? I know that you want to hook up with this guy, but you really don't want to confirm, is it your parents' death that drove you to dress up like a giant flying rodent? What's the deal with the car? I mean, this is an interview that's not going to happen for a number of reasons, but you wouldn't want to know, at least for your own personal benefit. You've been obsessed with Bruce Wayne this entire film. You don't want to find out more about the other half, other than, are we going to try and love each other? I did appreciate, however, in Batman Returns that they did make a dig at this scene. Alfred left me with a lot of questions. Even after that first night, she's like, well, I'll see you later, since you're obviously going out of town. Oh, we're going to be here for quite some time. Really? Alfred, you're a terrible butler. What are you doing, man? But Tim Burton's Batman was so influential on the Batman mythos. It spawned a direct sequel and those two other things from Schumacher. A great animated series. To me, at least, it was the first cinematic experience that I had outside of the original Star Wars trilogy. While there have been a dozen reboots and interpretations of Batman since this film, they simply couldn't compare to how deeply ingrained Batman was in the public consciousness at this time. Batman as a film was 1980s pop culture at its finest. From a visual and sound standpoint alone, it compensated for some of the more unusual choices it took for the plot and mythos of Batman. It still looks great. It still sounds great. There's still an excited feeling of nostalgia that comes with this film. Simply watching this film reminded me of a lot of great memories. And to me, that's why it'll always be the definitive Batman. Honestly, this has gotten me in the mood for other summer blockbusters that I've enjoyed. I think I'm going to start researching some of my other favorite classics. Definitely let me know some of your own Batman memories. Was it the film itself that you loved? Was it all the hype that was building up and carried through Batman that was fun? Maybe it was both. Certainly let me know. But in the meantime, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me. I'm Batman.